Rush, presented by Willis Automotive, is back because apparently Travis and Ross have even more to say.
All right, we promised an hour with the AD. We're going to go 50 minutes with the AD. He had a complete Windows 11 update.
He's given us so much other time.
He has.
We've done several hours with Brian if you were to add it up together. So don't let him give you a hard time, because this is what he's going to do now.
I'm sorry. I'm happy to come on for the first 10 minutes of tomorrow's show.
Yeah, exactly.
To make up for it. So I literally, I'm on my wife's computer right now, because my computer, I've got like this restore button that's like everything is like shut down. They're giving me the option to restore from Time Machine or reinstall Mac OS Tahoe. I'm like, well, I'm not touching that. I'm going to call our IT department. That's when they open and like, tell me which button to push. So then trying to figure out how to get Kara's computer fired. If should I just do it on my phone? I'm like, well, shoot, do I really want to hold this thing up there for 50 minutes? I'm like, my shoulders are gonna fall apart. So I'm so sorry.
Brian, yesterday,
I'm sure your viewers have plummeted because I have
Brian, listen, yesterday Travis's camera failed slowly from bottom to top. He had to unplug it and reset it at the top of the hour. We've all been there, and this leads right into one of our discussions of like, we all find out what we're really in charge of at some point, don't we? When you're like, the internet doesn't work. I'm no longer an athletic director. I'm now a doorstop.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Technology is great, especially when you need it the most. It's like, oh God, how do I get out of this jam? It's so apologies for the delay.
You're fine. You're fine. Totally fine. You've given us so much time over the years. We appreciate all of that. And thanks for giving us time this morning. Appreciate that as well. I like the jersey. Or the colors of the shirt here.
Oh, so
is that one of the things? Can we just jump right in, Trav? Are you good with us getting in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that one of the things? I mean, did you play a part in bringing that back? That when we were growing up, that was gone. That baby blue, kind of that retro feel. Were you a part of bringing all that back?
That was early on. It was probably my first year or so trying to figure out. So we got to find some things to kind of shake things up around here. Right? We got to, we're going to maybe stop just short of grabbing folks by the shoulders and kind of shaking them and letting them know that we're around. But we needed to find some ways just to kind of get back on folks' radar. And, we take so much pride in the 1969 Final Four team, and those uniforms are sweet. And so it's like, well, gosh, that seems like an easy thing to do. We'd seen a lot of other schools create some type of a alternate jersey, and a lot of schools were going with like a black jersey, or they're going with some other color. And to me, it's like, well, black's not one of our school colors, so we weren't going to go there. And I don't mean this isn't like a shot at Iowa State or anything, believe me, but so it's just like I feel like we needed to tap into our roots, and there was something there. And a lot of our donor base, I mean, they live through, they're at a time of their life where they live through the glory years of Drake basketball. And so how do we find a way to tap into that, while also understanding that the odds are those are going to be pretty cool to the young kids as well. And so we're going to be able to kill two birds with one stone by maybe appeasing, a segment of our population that remembers when Drake was a top 10 team, as well as trying to, how do we become cool again to that next generation, to the youngest generation, so that they want to put Drake, kind of on their radar.
So, I know you use analytics for everything, because everybody uses analytics now. When you launched those uniforms and brought the baby blue back, and probably even still today, how much more revenue does the baby blue bring in as opposed to just normal gear? I mean, because I know you can track that. Is baby blue and I don't know if it's baby blue or sky blue or whatever the technical blue is. Is that your number one seller?
Yeah, we don't have a specific name for the shade of light blue. It's certainly not Carolina blue. We wouldn't go there. When I was at Marquette, we introduced a light blue uniform that we called championship blue, because that's what their team, when they won the title in '77, wore, something like that. But I couldn't just blatantly rip that off and bring here. So we don't have a name for it. But yeah, there's I would say what we've seen from our licensing sales over the years has just really taken off. I mean, I can go find the numbers at some point here, but from 2018, what we're doing licensing to, like, after, we haven't got updated numbers for this year, but last year at the end of like our 30-win basketball season, I mean, we were doing significantly more. We're talking, we're like 10 times more in licensing revenue than what we were doing in our first year here. And I think a lot of it kind of got the ball rolling with going to the light blue Drake script. So our vintage Drake uniform really kind of took off. And I think some of it, though, honestly, is we have to be careful that we don't skew too far into it. So now we've put some parameters around how can we use the Drake script, because we've seen some where it's like in a light blue version and it goes onto a black shirt. Well, the problem there is that when you put like the light blue onto the black shirt, it makes the light blue look more purple, which we don't want to look purple at Drake. I mean, there's already a school in our state that owns purple. And so we're not going to go there. And so we actually are trying to refine that and say, okay, you can only use the light blue, like the white script on the light blue, or if you're going to use light blue, script needs to be on white or on like a lighter shade of gray. Just trying to refine that. The next generation of it, though, is what we started maybe a year or so back, is bringing back the Marching Spike logo. And so that was a really popular logo in like the 80s, and so it's essentially it's like a mirror image of the Bucky Badger logo. If you look closely at the two, like they're
you're gonna get you're gonna get sued now.
No, it's a Bucky Badger. There's one from North Carolina. They could tell like maybe there's a similar designer who made these, decades ago.
It's like fight songs. They're all kind of the same.
So we're bringing that
Philip
back.
Sousa.
Yeah, that's right. 76 trombones of the big parade. And so we're going to have the kind of that era. I think we'll look into exploring kind of the Marching Spike. That's really popular with some of our teams. They've been wanting to bring that back. It has not made it onto jerseys yet, but and it's not going to make it onto jerseys this year. Just so I'm not like teasing something that's going to happen here in this next year, because those jersey orders are made months in advance, and that's not happening for this next calendar year. But I think trying to find some ways to always have something new and fresh that connects with our history is a good thing.
Well, you brought up revenue coming from licensing. So when we compare universities and try to give people an idea of where revenue comes from Drake, where in your revenue streams, I'm assuming university support, donor support, ticket sales, where does licensing money fall in your revenue stream? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? Is it?
Yeah, it's down there. We're talking about like licensing revenues in the hundreds of thousands, whereas donor support is in the millions of dollars. And so, I mean, it would be beneath what we do from a Bulldog club and or giving money to Excellence Fund. So individual philanthropy, what Drake Sports Properties is able to create for us, ticket sales certainly is up there. University support is up there. But I mean, it's going to be, it's not going to be in the top 5.
Okay. What is that relationship like with when you talk about university support being in the up there? What's that relationship like with a president and an athletic director?
Oh, I would say to describe it as we can have competing interests. I mean, it is one of the differences between working in pro sports and working in college sports. So I talk to students who are trying to get into sports, and they say, I ask, well, which one do you want? And having worked in the NFL for 3 years when I was at the Bears, and now having worked in college athletics, I made the choice to go into college athletics because there were certain aspects of college sports that I really liked more about that experience of what I had in the NFL. Although here we are 20 years later, and some of our sports are kind of moving into that professional sports era, which we can get into later here. But what I tell folks is one of the things that I really liked about working in the NFL was that everybody was always rowing the same direction. And because like everybody in the whole organization, it's like we had one goal in mind: how do you win the Super Bowl? And so like everything you do is about, okay, we're doing all we can to put this team in position to be successful, because there's only one team and there's only one goal. Well, within our athletics department, we've got 18 sports. And so what may be good for football may not be good for cross country and vice versa. And so there's some competing interest there. But even within our athletics department, athletics is only one unit of campus. So, at Drake, if our budget is $130 million as an institution, and if we're spending $15 million within athletics, it's like, okay, well, that's a little more than 10% of the overall university, what we're spending in a budget in a year. And so to answer your question, it would be great for us to be able to receive additional dollars to be able to put towards, our efforts in athletics. But university presidents have to look at it. Okay, well, that's just one piece here of the enterprise. And if I go really heavy into that space, it's going to come to the detriment of something else. And are we willing to do that? And so there's going to always be a give and take with that aspect of the relationship. And it's something that, Marty and I have a great working relationship. I certainly don't get everything that I want. And I'm sure in his eyes, I probably don't give everything that he's looking for as well. So that's kind of the unique piece there where, we fund, they help us to a significant tune, but it's like from a percentage basis, 2/3 of what we're generating is that we're spending is coming from dollars that we generate.
What's the biggest challenge you face now as an athletic director? And do you try to keep up the best you can, or do you say, this is who we are, this is how we're going to compete, we're not going to try to veer, or is it like, hey, let's go all in and make a huge push to be the dominant one in the valley or a university your size? How do you look at today's landscape?
Yeah, it's tough. It's something that we kind of go back and forth on. We can't ever lose sight of who we are. I think that, and for Drake, that is someone who is not going to bend on what we are academically. We're not going to bend on what we need to be in our community. I think we're going to look for those opportunities and those moments to really thrive athletically. I think it's hard for us to say that yes, all 18 sports we want. We think that we can realistically compete for championships across the board. Like I'd love to be able to say that's the case, but it's not. We don't fund certain sports the same way that other schools in our league do it. I think I came in here with just an understanding that we need to know kind of what stirs our drink here right now, and it's basketballs and it's Drake relays. We've got to make sure that those are really big economic drivers for us, and really big for us is a relative term, because what we are able to generate from there is not what other schools can generate, but yet those other schools are the ones that we'll see in national tournaments.
Yeah.
And so I think that we want to be able to compete in as many of the sports that we can. We know that there's a baseline that we need to be able to provide for our sports. So we'll talk in terms of, there are certain sports that we think can compete on a national level. There are certain sports we think can compete on a regional level, maybe some that we aspire to compete for a conference championship level. And then there's going to be others that we just have to make sure that we are providing some baseline type of experience for them. And we don't get into tiering conversations with coaches and everything per se, but it's in terms of like who fits where. But they're, in my mind, I've got a pretty idea of where certain sports need to be. And so and then as things evolve, then you'll see teams maybe move up or move down based off of external forces that cause us to reevaluate, kind of just given the time that we find ourselves in.
So I guess along that line, Brian, then how do you and your bosses judge success as an athletic director as a whole?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is around one, how are we? I think that there's gonna be a budget component to it. I mean, okay. I remember when I first got to Drake, I was given 3 goals by Marty Hardin. So this is back in 2018, and the 3 goals in no particular order were to establish to improve the level of professionalism within the department. that we need to kind of start to just do things a little bit differently. We need to be how our game presentations were, how we were in the community. We needed to be present in that space.
Wow.
So that was kind of grouped into one piece. Number two was and this was literally said, it was to keep Jenny Bronchek. And so that was a very clearly stated goal in 2018. And I guess I did well for a couple of years. And then number three was to get our arms wrapped around the budget, that there had been some challenges with the budget in terms of how it was being built. I guess they were traditionally establishing the budget. The practice was to identify what athletics wanted to spend, and then create a revenue projection that would balance. But then inevitably what happened is you get to April and the revenue projections were not based in reality, and the expenses were. So all of a sudden you get a gap there, and you're going into the last quarter of a fiscal year, and you've got this gap to make up, and it wasn't happening. And so we had to completely change how we budgeted items and have some tough conversations and say, listen, we need to build accurate revenue projections. We can't there's times that they were building revenue men's basketball season ticket projections where they were expecting to increase season ticket sales by 40%, and they were coming off a year that they lost 20 games. They're like, well, shoot, that's not going to happen. But yet that allowed them to establish what the expenses were, because hey, here's what we want to spend. Well, in order to spend that, you got to be able to have revenues that offset it. So then they just kind of would create these fictitious revenue lines. So we completely scrapped that and said, well, we're going to start by what we think we can actually generate in revenue, and then we're going to have to adjust our expenses to kind of come close to matching that. And so we did that. So those are the three things that when I was initially, because I asked that same question, Ross, of, all right, Marty, in this first year, success is what to you? And those are the three things given to me back in December of 2017, January 2018.
Yeah.
Now it's changed a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's kind of one of the questions Travis is asking there as well. Like those changes that happen, you've been here for a really interesting time where the job of an athletic director has changed drastically. And
it has. I mean, it's I've said for the longest time that the three most important aspects of my job are to hire and retain the right head coaches, to build and maintain the proper culture, and to fundraise. And those are probably still three of the most important jobs. It's just that the fundraise component looks different than it did before. Like the fundraise component, which was primarily individual philanthropy, now we start to see there's a corporate side to it too. And so working with our Learfield team, with Greg Ellis and his team with Drake Sports Properties, bringing on Ryan Grant to kind of to try to and his Corner 3 team to try to find ways to go after jersey patches, naming rights to venues. Drake Relays put in sponsorships. So there's that piece there, like that number, what we're doing on that corporate sponsorship side, like we'd love to double that number here over the next year or two, to be able to kind of offset some of the other expenses that we now that are now hitting our bottom line.
Brian, we got to take a quick break. I hope you're okay with that. It's about a 4-minute break. We'll take a break. We'll come back.
Had you joined us on time, we wouldn't do this. I'm joking.
Yeah. We do got to pay the bills. It is the Rush Radio Show, powered by Willis Automotive.
The Rush, presented by Willis Automotive, returns now with fresh sports takes and at least one unnecessary rant.
Welcome back to the Rush Radio Show, powered by Willis Automotive. Don't forget, coming up on Friday, it's the weekly woohoo from the Iowa Lottery. Your chance to win a $90 prize pack from the Iowa Lottery. And if you're not a VIP club member, sign up for free at ialottery.com/VIPs. Continuing our hour with the AD, today's guest is Brian Hardin, the athletic director at Drake University. And Brian, we were talking about revenue earlier. Would you ever bring in private equity to your athletic department?
The details would matter a lot. I mean, is it private equity? Is it private capital? So I think it's the details in terms of what exactly are they asking for in return. So I wouldn't say never, wouldn't rule it out, but I would need to. The devil's going to be in the details. So what are they wanting in exchange? Is there what's the interest rate that's going to be associated with it? Is there what type of control is going to be? Is it so what type of what strings are going to be attached to the significant amount of dollars that would be coming to the department?
Yeah. What would be your plans? This came from one of our listeners. As you prepare for these increasing costs, man, you start to look at how things have escalated these last couple of years. It's hard to extrapolate out if that's going to continue, at what rate that continues, as you're talking about budgeting and stuff. What do you do to prepare for those increasing costs?
Yeah, we've got to find other ways to generate. I mean, the word, unsustainable has been used now for multiple years, but yet people still keep finding ways to fund
To
these
sustain.
yeah, to sustain themselves. And I think that as long as there are coaches feeling pressure going into that towards the end of a contract, as long as there are desperate fan bases who are wanting to be relevant or wanting to regain national notoriety, there will be individuals connected to those schools who will be willing to overspend and will essentially be resetting the market each year and forcing everybody else to have to do more to try to keep up with others in that space. So we're our own worst enemy here. I mean, I've talked to folks about this. I mean, why are we spending this much on student athletes here? The return on the investment can't be that great, but yet we continue to do it because we're trying to find ways to pursue, championships. And so, or to, in some cases, coaches to keep their jobs. So how do we go about doing that? And it's going to have to be just trying to find ways to, tap into new revenue sources. And so that's why, we, months ago brought Ryan Grant on board to try to find ways to kind of help us in that space. Like I mentioned before, we need to try to probably double what we're doing on that, the corporate side, because we can't keep taxing our best people, our best fans in this space. We've got to be able to get back to where fans want, like our fan base doesn't love the rev share, NIL, whatever you want to call it. They love having Drake basketball play in meaningful games in March. And so they understand that for that to occur, we're going to have to be involved in this area to some degree. But there's a limit to what folks will want to commit, how often they can commit resources. So we need to go out and actually what we're doing is creating an expense line in our budget for this. And then we have to go out there and try to find the revenue to offset it, going back to one of our earlier conversations.
So you're part of the House agreement, and you don't have to tell us the answer here, but I'm going to ask just so we can put it in relative terms. And you don't have to single out a sport, but like NIL at Drake, how much money is in the fund? Is it 200,000? Is it 500,000? Is it $1 million? Do you control the NIL budget? Meaning you say, hey, Coach Hendo, you have here's 250,000 you got for the year. How does NIL work at Drake? Because it's different at every institution.
It is. Yep. So at Drake, I will talk. We do like the institutional rev share, if you will. We do that for both of our basketball programs. We can't do it for football. That's a Pioneer Football League rule that we cannot share, those dollars with football. If our young men on our football team want to go out and cut their own deal, if they want to do something with Doco, they're in town, they can go out and they can do that. Okay. But we can't. We're not supposed to be helping to facilitate that too much, and we can't be just giving dollars to them. So that takes a huge, number of athletes off the plate. So we focus solely on both basketballs. And then from that standpoint, how do we determine the dollars? Well, I'll go to both Allison and Eric and say, all right, what are you hearing in terms of kind of the direction that things are going for this next off season? And I'll compare it to what I'm hearing from people that I'm talking to, and then we'll come together and we'll identify what a proper number is. And so like this past year, Eric and I'll use Eric as an example here, because that's the bigger number. Just trying to figure, okay, here's what we spent for this past year. What are you hearing? Okay, well, we think it's going to go up. Well, what do we think? How much is it? What percentage are we hearing? And so then we use that and are able to kind of be able to get to a number that I think that we can raise. That is what he wants to do. And so we had, honestly, we had conversations about, he threw a number out there, and the number was higher than what I thought we could get to. But then I talked to friends of mine, and I lean on some folks that are successful business leaders that have some type of a connection to Drake. And I talked to one of them, and he said, Brian, he goes, I think you got to do all you can to get to that number. And I said, he goes, when I was in charge of my business here in town, I said, I really felt that one of the roles that I had as a leader was to eliminate the excuses that could prevent poor performance. And he said, if somebody is asking for something and you don't deliver fully what they're asking for, you've now built in something here that says, gosh, if only we had done this, what could have what could have done. But if you can provide something for them, then you can more fairly maybe evaluate kind of what's going on here. And so we all right. So we went ahead and went towards that, and we're able to kind of and get to what Hendo wanted for this year. And then we have to go out there and go find it. And so that's kind of where things are at. And we're well on our way. We're at a spot that, we've got a couple more gifts that we need to close for us to get to that spot. But that's generally how we do it here, because we're not carving money out of a TV deal to get this done.
Yeah.
We're not, we don't have like an endowment set up where we can just kind of pull everything in from that. We're not going to the school saying this is what it is. And there are some places that are doing that. That's not how we're doing. Everything that we're doing in this area is being generated, by the athletics department.
All right, man, time's going to fly. Can we get another hour with you? No, I'm kidding.
Yep.
I want to go back. You said something earlier about choosing to get back into the college game rather than the pro model. And I saw your wheels kind of turn. You just said that like, oh, man, now we're so close to that model anyway. What was it at that time that made you decide to get back into college and leave the pro model?
I really like the relationships with the athletes in the college level more than the pro level. And there were some really great folks that, like my colleagues at the Bears were awesome, and most of the players, but it's just a different dynamic, that those were grown men and that was their job, and they were going in there and they were doing their job and they were getting out. And, part of it probably was where I was on the totem pole. I mean, I was 23 to 26 years old during my 3 years there, working in the Bears PR department, which wasn't always the most favorite department that the players loved. Go with them and say, hey, I need you to go talk to this reporter from the Chicago Tribune or whatever. Like that wasn't the highlight of their day. And so I recognize that. But also it's just different, like when you see them come in as rookies, so like one of the years there, I was assigned to be the primary rep for Kyle Orton, Southeast Polk's finest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Devin Hester, and so I'd work with them and handle all their media requests. And how they were as rookies is kind of similar to what we see in our. They were very impressionable, and they would listen to you, and then as they get older, they have things figured out, and so they thought. And so now you're working with them, and it just became more of a challenge. Whereas in college, working with the athletes, I mean, to see the growth from an 18-year-old to a 22 or 23-year-old, I mean, it's pretty incredible to be able to do that. I just sat down with some athletes during our senior exit interviews and to kind of talk through just the observations I made of them in their time here. That was really rewarding. So that's what kind of drove me to get back into college.
Kind of a non-traditional maybe way to athletic director. You started in sports information and that's basically working with the media. That's probably why you're media friendly. Was the goal always to be an athletic director, or did you want to be Mike Mahon?
Yeah, well, let's not do that.
Sorry, Mike.
How do I answer that? Folks who know Mike probably understand why I'm holding my tongue right now. No, Mike is amazing. We could not do the Drake Relays without Mike Mahon. I would say it's somewhere in between the two. I would say I did not have any aspirations of being an athletic director. It was not on my radar. I thought I had a boss at Notre Dame named John Heisler, and so John Heisler was the senior associate athletic director overseeing the communications team. He did some football scheduling. I mean, he's a legend in the industry, and so he is who I thought that I was going to be. When I got the job at Notre Dame as like the head of communications for the football team, I thought my career path was going to lead to being some type of senior associate athletic director overseeing communications and marketing. Like I thought I was going to be, Nick Juice up at Iowa State. Like I thought that was where I thought it was trending towards. And honestly, it was going there. I left Notre Dame to bet on myself to become an administrator. So I went from being a specialist to a generalist when I left Notre Dame to go to Ball State and oversee their communications, marketing, ticket sales, and the corporate sales operations as deputy athletic director there. And I thought that that's what it was going to be. And I may be able to move on to a bigger school in a similar type capacity. But then my boss left 18 months later, and I was asked to serve as an interim athletic director. And that's where I got my first bite of the apple, and kind of that's what set me off down this path instead.
Wow.
It's like a drug. You're like, oh, okay, I like this. I
became power hungry. You know, I want everybody looking at me for the answers. No, it was that was hard. I mean, to go from making suggestions to making decisions like that, that's tough. And you see it with assistant coaches sliding over into being a head coach. Like you use those 18 inches, you slide over on the bench, man. And it's like now everyone's looking at you like that. That's different. And then that took some time. It still takes some time to kind of get used to it. But it was, I like being a part of, honestly, what it was being part of the larger university conversations, being part of a president's council and reporting directly to the president, being, on the same level as other vice presidents of the university who are overseeing advancement or admissions or general counsel or student affairs, and be able to kind of hear kind of what they're doing, but then also try to advocate for athletics and how that could fit into the overall atmosphere within a campus environment.
We have a listener, Tyler. He's actually a huge UNI fan, but he's a big Missouri Valley fan.
Yeah.
And he asked a little while back if we could ask you, what do you think the Valley looks like in 5 years?
That's a great question. I think the Valley looks very similar to the way it does right now. I think that I just think the Valley is a really stable league, and barring too many changes, I'll be curious. I'll say this: there's 11 members in the Valley, and I would think 5 years from now, almost all of those 11 will still be in place. Now, I don't think that there'll be 11 members in the Valley in 5 years. I don't know what that number will be. I don't know if it'll be 12 or 14 or 16 or something crazier than that. But I'd be surprised if the Valley is 11 teams in 5 years. I would not be surprised if the 11 teams that are in the Valley are still in the Valley in 5 years.
So you're talking about expansion. I was with an athletic director last night who wants to be in the Valley. So
hey, I wonder who that is.
Adrian Dow from
Travis, that's who it was.
Yeah, but I mean, and you and I have had this conversation in that Omaha, whether you like Omaha or not, in history, Omaha is one of the biggest supporters of the Missouri Valley Conference, right?
Huge Valley town.
Yeah. Huge Valley town. And I think Drake would be people here remember the Creighton-Drake showdowns and those, and I think if I'm the commissioner of the Valley, I get why you hesitate a little bit, but I think with the population base and the fandom for the Valley, I think it would be a good addition. But what do I know?
Yeah, no, I've been on the record with in meetings and everything. And I was with Adrian last week in Las Vegas for a conference, and we talked about it. We just partnered together and trying to figure out where we're going to try to move our men's tennis programs to. And so I agree. I think it's great. I think that what they're doing over there, there's a ton of money there. Omaha has more billionaires per capita than any town in the country. I think Adrian, from his time at Creighton, is doing a masterful job of getting people energized around there. The investments going into that program. I think it's a program on the rise. A lot of it is there's great value in the two towns being connected. And as I think that there's going to have to come a time that we're going to have to evaluate expansion, not solely based off of who is going to help us sell more tickets to Arch Madness or get another bid into the tournament, but also who can help limit expenses. And the travel piece is one of our largest buckets. Outside of personnel, travel is going to be right up there towards the top. And so selfishly for our league, which has moved to the southeast with some of its recent additions, to find something more in that northwest quadrant of our footprint would be beneficial for Northern Iowa and for Drake.
So, and I know Kansas City and Mark Turgeon probably went in too, but we haven't talked to you since the expansion of the NCAA tournament. I think a lot of people thought, well, this is going to help teams in the Valley. We don't think so. Do you think the expansion helps Valley get a 2-bid league? No,
every so
or no?
often. Yeah, I think so. I think every, once every 2-3 years, I could see that doing it. And now we've got to do our part. I'm not as concerned with like the expansion piece. I think the evaluation piece is the one that needs to be reviewed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I think
like
because
that.
as long as we keep utilizing the tools in place to evaluate teams, then we're also going to be, encouraging schools to continue to schedule the way they are. I mean, the schools are
Yeah.
only scheduling. Iowa and Iowa State won't play us because it's a product of the system that's in place. It's not necessarily their fault. I mean, I can throw shade if I wanted at the people at those two schools, but they're just reacting to kind of what they've learned from history, which is bigger schools. They benefit by establishing a non-conference schedule where you play 5-6 really good teams, 7 good teams, from Power 4 leagues that are going to be quad 1, quad 2 type games, and then you beat up on 5 or 6 really bad teams.
Right.
And we fit somewhere in the middle there. It's actually
danger zone.
We're closer to the really good side because our average net score over the past 6 years has been around like 54 or something. So we're on that side, but it's not enough to take off another power conference school, and we're clearly not in the bottom 50 schools that they're trying to schedule just to spike their efficiency numbers. So until we can get that, like the evaluation piece changed, then to me, like the expansion doesn't really matter. I do think it will help us. We'll get some teams in over time. If you look at the recent history, we would have had another team or two in over the last 5 years. So I think we will every so often. I think you'll see mid-majors from the Atlantic 10 and the Mountain West or the Pac-12 be able to get in. So it'll help us a little bit. But again, I've been trying to bang the drum on. We need to evaluate just kind of how the net is put together. WAB, wins by bubble is like the new term now.
But I hadn't heard this one.
Oh yeah,
okay.
that's the latest one. That's the one that the committee uses a lot. And if you look at WAB, it correlates pretty closely to how they seeded teams. But again, WAB is a metric that is based off of net as well, off of how many times with team 45 win a game. Now it'll become team 53 in this next one. But so it's like, okay, we've got to refine that tool. To me, it's still a problem that the formula for net has never been publicly shared, and there's an issue with that. And so we've got to get that formula fixed, so then we can just incentivize schools to go back to doing home and homes with schools like us. It's still a shame that our 4 Division I schools are not playing on an annual basis.
Can I ask some corny questions, Trav?
Go for it. I'll try to be fast. It's a lightning round here.
What's been your best moment as athletic director?
Oh, I could say a couple things. I should say something like, seeing the kids walk across the stage at graduation, when and that's
no. Give us the real answer.
And that's awesome. I would say last year the Friday in Wichita after we beat Missouri, and just walking around town and just seeing Drake fans still there, and we were all just walking on cloud 9, like, oh my gosh, we're going to the second round here, like that. That was pretty sweet.
I remember seeing you down in Wichita and seeing and feeling that. Yeah. I remember running into you and thinking, man, he seems like he's on cloud 9. That's cool. That's cool. That's one of the moments.
Yeah, that really sticks out.
All right. What about this? What was your most fun moment as an athlete?
Ooh.
Most fun moment as an athlete. I always look, Pollyannish answer. I always look back to Drake relays. Not so much for the meet. Like the meet, I love the meet, but having grown up here and I was able to bring teammates who did not know about the Drake relays at all. My parents would host a spaghetti dinner on the Thursday night before Drake relays at our house in Windsor Heights. And so we'd bring the whole team over there, bring the bus over, and so we'd have a dinner there. That was always really special. My proudest moment athletically, my sophomore year, I ran my 2 fastest times of my college. Ran a 47 in the open 400, split 46.5, which were the 2 best times that I ran. My sophomore year, I didn't get any faster because I made some choices as a junior and senior. When I moved off campus with my roommates, I probably decided to have too good of a time. That
mostly found tasty tacos, something like that. Was that the decisions?
Something like that. It definitely was what I was putting into my body. It wasn't probably I wasn't ingesting the premium fuel anymore. It was sort of,
Premium
it was
fuel.
probably more corn-based fuel if you get right there. So, but it was so I would say we ran down to Tulane for our conference meet in New Orleans, and that was a really cool experience because I accomplished something athletically that I didn't think that this slow white kid from Des Moines, Iowa could ever be able to do.
So I've got a serious
Not
question.
so slow.
Okay.
And it's two parts. If the NCAA all of a sudden said, hey, you don't have to have a minimum of sports, would everything go club except basketball and maybe track? And on that, if you could add one sport, what would it be?
All right. So if the club piece, so yeah, the minimum sport component would be interesting. I've not given much thought to what we do in that space. We know what we would need to keep and we need to fully continue to invest in. But yeah, I don't know what that would look like. The question really kind of then comes to how many sports would we use as part of our enrollment management strategy? What do we need to continue to do to try to drive enrollment there? So that would probably be a conversation that we would have with campus to try to figure out what that will look like. What's the benefit then back to campus? And so that's an interesting one. So I don't know. I'll have to give that some more thought. If we were to add a sport, I know what I should say for being in Iowa, but the challenges with adding wrestling are just that we don't have the locker rooms, don't have the practice space. There's so many other pieces to it. The easiest one to add, and the easiest, is going to be something like flag football. It's going to be something like stunt, where there are already facilities in place, where it's just, and they don't require a ton. Like triathlon would be another easier one to add.
Oh, wow. That's its own. That's its own.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we kicked the tires on that a few years ago. But I get the wrestling piece. I get that question more than anything else about sports each year, and we should, given the space we live in and kind of what Iowa and Iowa State are doing in that area. Yeah. So, but it's, I was we had our golf outing yesterday that Zach Johnson was at, and I had somebody been in my ear about adding lacrosse because lacrosse is exploding in markets that Drake typically historically has gone into to try to recruit kids. I'd say, however, though, Drake is changing, and for the history of Drake, it's been dominated by students who come in from out of state. Like our historical average is 70% of Drake students come from out of state. This year will mark maybe the first time in Drake history that we'll have consecutive freshman classes that have been majority Iowans, and so we've completely shifted. And so with that in mind, like lacrosse just isn't big here. I love lacrosse. I had a brother-in-law who played lacrosse at Colgate. I think lacrosse is a really exciting sport to watch in person. It just doesn't have much traction here, and so we'd have to build a strategy around, if we were to add a sport, what is a sport that we can add that we're able to recruit from our own backyard.
Brian, this has been so much fun. Thank you. We always enjoyed your candor with us. It's always a lot of fun. Thank you.
I'm sorry for being 10 minutes late. I'll make it up. If you guys want to stay on for 10 more minutes, we can just have a 3-person conversation.
All right, Brian, have a great day. We appreciate the time, and we'll catch up soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See you, buddy.